Hey everyone, it's Christine Gritman here with Social. I do this show every single Friday live at 12 noon Eastern Time. And today I'm here with a very special guest, Karasiewicz. Did I get it right?
Karasiewicz, very close.
Yay, close. And now, Christian, tell us where you're live streaming from, because you're far away, right? You're not in New York.
I'm not in New York. No, actually, currently overseas. But yeah, in the Middle East region.
Cool. So, well, thank you so much for making time for this week. What time is it over there?
About 6 o'clock, actually.
Wow. In the morning or in the evening?
In the evening.
Okay, that's better. All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, the reason I have Christian on today is I've actually been on your show, Christian, a few times. That is Social Chatter from Social Chefs. And it's interesting because we do a very similar thing in different ways, which is each of us brings the latest social media headlines to our followers each and every week. So first, I'd love for you to tell the people at home a little bit about Social Chefs and the Social Chatter show and how it came about.
So Social Chefs, basically, I have a background in culinary arts, actually.
Oh, nice.
But I've also been working in social media since like 2006. And so I kind of married the two because, like in cooking, it's all about learning the fundamentals. And social media is the same exact thing. You learn the fundamentals for one platform and you apply it to another one. You may need to tweak things just a little bit along the way, like tweaking a recipe. And that's how Social Chefs was born. And then off of that, I've created a couple of different products. We have social snacks, which are bite-size, under 5-minute social media marketing tutorials. These are tutorials about like whether it's a social media platform, an app, how to actually do some of these things that people might find that they get challenged with figuring out how to do.
I like that snackable content because so many people, they don't have time and there's so many things challenging their attention. And if you can get something done in under 5 minutes, that is gold.
And I will say the other thing is the reason we set the 5-minute standard on this is because it also challenges me as well because, like when I first started doing YouTube videos, you know how it goes, like live streaming. Hey, I'm going to go on live stream and it's a 3-minute, a 3-hour video, for example, or 2-hour video, and setting those boundaries is key. And so saying, hey, 5 minutes, that gives me 5 minutes to edit. And hey, I say it's going to be 5 minutes or less. I have to get underneath that.
Exactly.
So that's social snacks. And then off that, we also then built Social Chatter. Back in, this was like Blab days, like the first day.
Wow,
of
Blab.
Yeah. Yes, haven't heard that one in a while, right?
Yeah, that was if I'm not, I was not on Blab, but that was one of the first live streaming platforms. That was in the era of Meerkat and Periscope, but I've heard about Blab being better for building community.
It was a fantastic platform. I mean, you could bring on people. It was very interactive. They had a great little chat platform going on. So it was a fantastic tool. I'm surprised, that they never stuck around, and I think they just got acquired maybe in the last couple of weeks, maybe a couple months. But so we started Social Chatter off of that.
Nice.
Gone through a couple of co-hosts, but again, it's also about finding the right people to work with, people that also share the same passion, or people that sometimes they get too busy. So what we did was it was actually a funny story. It was myself and Vincent Orlek, who's now I think working for Arizona State, I think, in their digital marketing department there. So went with him, and then actually needed a guest one week, and somebody recommended bringing on Phil. And Phil was a guest on the show, and I really liked the energy and just the
Phil
synergy.
Gerbishak, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love the energy and the just the enthusiasm. And I was like, hey, that actually really drives me. So he's been hosting ever since. It's been quite a while. So so that's Social Chatter, and
that's great.
Something we love to do every week, 45 to 60-minute show.
Nice. So for people who haven't watched Social Chatter before, it is a live stream, and there is a specific slate of, it's not going to be everything that happened in social media because that would get ridiculous. Some things aren't important. How do you decide which headlines you are going to discuss on Social Chatter with your guests?
So that's a fantastic question. So initially, and I will say this has been a process. Like we've gone over time. At first it was like, hey, let's just talk about everything. And then we started to pull things back because it was like, well, hey, that 2 to 3 hour show, it doesn't need to be 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
How do we scale this back? We started to really be very selective about what we were pushing. So, for example, our goal is to give you business-minded social media news. So, we're not going to talk about some of the little minor things that really may not impact a business. We try to take a topic. We then tell you what it is, how it might help you depending on what industry you're in. And, something so that like if it's new, you might be able to then take it and like start running with it because, hey, it's actually live for everyone. Or if it's something that we know that they're testing, we gave you tips to help you actually learn how to implement them immediately when it is actually gone live for everyone. So that's basically how we do it. We try to pick topics that we think are interesting that we can talk about, and things that are going to have the most value for viewers.
I love that. Similarly, I have my own midweek minute program, and that is twofold. On the one hand, there's a snackable, literally 1 minute long rundown of just headlines, like nothing extra, not really how to implement it, because it's just a minute long, right? So, and I do that as a pre-recorded video because it needs to be a minute, and that's hard.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah, and then I had started doing a live stream later that afternoon at like 4 p.m. on Wednesdays, where I go through the stories in slightly greater detail and explain them and go through them sometimes with the screen share for about 20 minutes. And I have to say, that hasn't been getting the level of reception as the 1 minute videos have. So I might be discontinuing that live stream. I'm not sure, but I really like Social Chefs because it's the two of you. You're very knowledgeable. You're sharing your own insights and what you think the real meaning of the news is, and you have on a guest who also is a professional who's in this area. How do you get the information? How do you learn what the news is to cover?
So I will say an RSS feed reader is your friend.
Huge.
That's key. Basically, for those of you who don't know, RSS feeds, every website has this, every podcast has this. So like if you have a new podcast, you put that up. If you're connected to iTunes literally goes and checks and says, hey, is there something new? And then it brings it back. Same thing for websites. Websites go and check your RSS feed, see what's new, and bring it back. So what we basically do is we load up all of the popular social media blogs. So, for example, we've got Facebook in there. We've got Instagram.
And to clarify for people who maybe don't realize it, these platforms, they do have their own blog and newsroom that provides information direct from the source. So if you Google, for example, Facebook News tab, you're going to get a million results before Facebook's own announcement of the feature. But if you really want to get the best information, you're going to get it straight from Facebook.
And if you get it straight from Facebook, it's also not as skewed. A lot of times, some of these sites, we definitely make sure we don't skew the information that comes out. But there's a lot of these sites, they skew it. They misquote. They put in people that really kind of aren't the source of the information.
Yeah.
Just because, hey, this person tweeted something, they actually put them in the article, which is entering because it's half the time it's someone else who shared it. So they do that to get ahead of other people. But yeah, go directly to the source. I mean, if it's if you follow the Facebook blog, one challenge I will say with this is Facebook, for example, they have their Facebook blog, but then they might have some other blogs as well. And they don't always update. The
developer blog, for example, the developer blog frequently has things that the general Facebook newsroom does not touch.
No, and you have to really look through the information too, because sometimes on the surface it's like, like I think we were talking about it last week. It was Facebook was changing impressions for pages to make them more like ads impressions, and so it was like, well, great, that's one news topic. But then if you actually look through it, they were changing up how it worked on mobile for pages for something completely different.
Yeah,
and they vary sometimes a couple of stories that aren't necessarily in the headlines, so you do have to actually read a lot. So we do that. Also, Phil and I, we share some Facebook Messenger. Like we use the save feature, so we set up a group share there basically. So when we have something, each of us wants to like put in the show, we put it there, and then we just basically a couple days before pull the information, run through it real quick. Hey, what are the ones like? Again, we distill this information. So we go from and this is just like your funnel, your sales funnel, for example. We don't just like say, okay, let's put everybody at the bottom. We start with all the information at the top, and over the week, we basically start to distill it down to just the main topics that we want to cover. And we also factor in, obviously, also sometimes if there's like, maybe we don't have the time for like a full 60-minute show because we have other obligations that butt up against that time, we might cut a topic because we're like, hey, you know what? That's an important one, but it's not one of the key things that viewers probably need to know about. So that's how we do it.
It sounds like in general you're following principles of good journalism. You want to get to the actual original first I'm forgetting the term for it, but the original source of the information, the direct source. And you want to present what's important with a minimum of spin, but there's also some curation in there, because if you said anything that was happening at all times, it would get ridiculous. It would be too long and it would be really boring. So you're presenting, there's some degree of your own voice in there because you're presenting what you feel like people need to know, but at the same time, you're not spinning it. No. So many tech news pieces out there that I find, so many of them are analysis, what does this mean? And it usually is part of a greater context of the way that particular publication or reporter has been covering a particular platform. And they say, this fits into this larger pattern. And it can be really important not to do that.
Their content on their site. Yeah. It's not actually taking the content. Yeah, absolutely. And what we do also, like I said, we try to weed out the things that may not be as important. For example, like Twitter, here's an example. Twitter had these free emoji mashup bot stickers, which like on the surface, like, hey, if I'm using this for my personal account, like, yeah, those are fun. But how does that actually help people generate revenue? How does it help them actually generate business? Generate some leads? It's not going to really help you very much. Hey, great, a business is sharing some, emoji mashups. Meh. So,
Now, who is that audience who you're trying to benefit?
So we typically are trying to reach the social media manager. So like I said, I've been working since 2006 in social media for like IBM and General Dynamics, various celebrities and athletes as well, and shop.com. So what I like to do is I like to take my background, I'm tapping into like the people that I know are going to use this information, the social media manager or somebody who is the solopreneur trying to actually get started doing this. I want to make sure that they get the right information as well, because in the consulting that we do, we often get a lot of people that reach out to us and they're like, hey, I had this problem. I work with some, company, and it's like maybe not a company that really has background in doing some of this in social, and we end up having to have to fix their problems. It doesn't make it fun.
No.
But, again, we try to do good, in the world, basically. So we try to help people, get them the right information that they need.
Yeah, I've really had to cut down on what I do and don't cover, because first of all, I'm fitting headlines into a minute, but also my audience is really more specifically the small business owner. So the fact is, if you can now buy a custom Snapchat filter for $10,000, that's not something that's relevant to the people I'm speaking to. I felt like I had to cover some of the Facebook Libra stuff at the very beginning. Right. I haven't been lately because that's not my audience. My audience doesn't care.
No, and some of that, like, you can't, like, that's almost getting too much into the weeds in a sense. It's like, if Facebook announces Facebook Libra, that's something that people should know about because they need to know the terminology.
We're all humans existing in the world and participating in a monetary system. But.
Right, exactly. Very simple. And by the way, to your point, you said, hey, you do a 1 minute, little 1 minute snippets. So like, what we do is we do the live video that's about 45 to 60 minutes, and then what I also do is I record an Alexa flash briefing. So that's about maybe 6 to maybe 8 minutes.
Let's back up and talk about what that is exactly.
Okay, so flash briefings, very simple. It is for any Amazon Echo device. So it's a device, but if you also have the Amazon Alexa app, you can also tap into the power of an Alexa flash briefing. So you don't have to actually buy the physical device. You just install the app. You tell, Alexa, like, hey, Alexa, what's my flash briefing? And then any of the ones you have installed, which you can install directly from the app, it will then start to play the ones that you've selected.
I love that.
The flash briefings, they're fantastic.
It's like subscribing to a mini podcast.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. And, like with that, what we do is, so we take the headlines, but then I do expand upon the headlines. Like, hey, this week, for example, we talked about, let's see what we talked about. This week, we talked about like Facebook responsive ads on the show on episode 215, which was yesterday. And what we do is then, we go through these on the flash briefing, and we're just like, quick. We get to the tools. We tell people what the links are. Like, we use a tool called Pretty Links specifically to then drive.
Does it make your links pretty?
It makes them very pretty. Actually, so it makes them very easy. And this is a big tip for people, like if you're doing live video or audio or even stuff on your website, you can install Pretty Links. And what it will do, for example, every show, it's socialchefs.com/SC215. That would take you to the blog post that we're going to be publishing later on today, to that episode. So it makes it easier for you to give your listeners or your viewers an easy way to get to the link instead of being like, well, hey, go to, whatever my website is, / whatever, some word dash whatever. Like, it's very complicated. So this makes it easy. Fantastic tool to have in your toolbox.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, your weekly news happens in sort of you release it in sort of 3 different formats. You have the live stream, which is, 40 to 60 minutes of social chatter. Then you also have a highly condensed TLDR version that is audio only on the Alexa Brief.
Yes, it's audio only on the Alexa Brief.
And then you also have a blog.
Yes, and there's a fourth piece, actually. Ooh. We also take the live video, we extract the audio, do a little cleanup on it, and publish it as a podcast.
I have been meaning to do that with this show for 3 years now, and I have not, 2 years now, and I have not done it.
So it's actually a very easy process. I actually use a tool, it's called Downy, and what it does basically is I can drop a video link. So I take my YouTube video, I drop the link in the tool, and it will automatically strip the audio for me and save it.
That is really cool. Can you put that in the links later?
Sure.
Like in the comment thread?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Great.
So it's a fantastic tool, big time saver as well.
That is really
so that's
great.
the fourth item. Yeah, that's the fourth way we do that. And the reason we do this also is this. And I just got back from a conference speaking at Dubai. I was talking about repurposing and 25 plus ways to repurpose your content. But the reason I'm talking about, making a blog and making a live video and doing a flash briefing and doing a podcast is because you have to meet your audience where they're at. And you also have to look at who your audience is you're trying to reach. Some people, for example, they will tune into the live video, but not everybody wants to sit and watch a live video because they think, oh, I got a lot of work I got to get done. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be distracted watching a live video. So therefore, they might listen to a podcast. So, for example, they put their headphones on, they've got their podcast playing while they're doing some other work. They're able to quickly consume that content. And then you have the other people that are like, hey, I'm the busy professional, I'm the small business owner, I'm doing everything, and they want an easy way to consume that information. And that's where the flash briefing can really come in. And then the blog, obviously, houses all of this information. It houses the blog, the written content, the YouTube video, the flash briefing. So all this stuff there as well, which helps for the SEO purpose of things. So,
there's a YouTube video as well. So is the YouTube, do you do simulcast on Facebook and YouTube Live?
Sorry. Yes, I guess that would be a fifth item. Yes, we do simulcast to Facebook and to YouTube as well as LinkedIn Live.
That's awesome. You do that with StreamYard, right?
Yes,
nice.
We are using StreamYard.
Great. I want to go back to something we talked about at the beginning, which is how you get your news. So we mentioned those primary sources. That's the term I was looking for, primary sources.
Primary sources, yes.
From like the Facebook blog, the Twitter blog, the Instagram blog. What other sources do you use? Because sometimes things don't appear there, and it doesn't mean they didn't happen.
Sometimes I'll also I'll check some of my social media channels. For example, I might have some streams set up for certain hashtags that I know that a lot of people might use or that a publication might use. I also look at some of the other publications also that are out there, like Engadget, for example, is a blog I've followed for quite a long time. I'm a big tech guy, so I follow a lot of their content as well. I might check, let me think. What are the other resources?
I like TechCrunch. I feel like I've gotten good stuff from them.
TechCrunch, yes. Sometimes I'll go off TechCrunch and see what they have. Again, the thing you have to remember is none of these sites, they don't always publish everything. They might publish certain pieces, again, that might be skewed towards their readers, but they don't have everything, so you kind of have to pick and choose. Other times they actually will publish an article and it'll just link off to the Facebook article, for example, that Facebook has published.
Yeah.
You do have to kind of weed through what's there, but those are the primary sources actually that we use.
Also, a lot of times, and something that people should pay attention to, is a lot of times in the first paragraph of an article, it'll straight up say, according to a report by so-and-so, here's the thing that's happened. And yes, this publication still has a whole report on it, but you should go and check the report that broke it. And a lot of people don't do that. They just say, okay, well, I'll read this, but look at those links.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's because also sometimes what will happen is the article, for instance, they might... they pull out certain things that are from the article, but they don't pull out everything necessarily. Because again, they're trying to formulate a piece of content, that their readers might be interested in. So they might leave out, for example, something that is maybe they don't think it's important at the time of writing it, but you might think it's important if you read it and, like think about it from the perspective of your business. How can it actually help you?
And their primary audience is not your primary audience. So there may be totally different concerns there, and you need to know your audience's concerns and what they actually need to know.
Definitely. And for the most part, they're a news site. So what they're looking to do is they're looking to get on your, Google News, for example, to get their content to appear at the top of a Google search. They're not necessarily looking at it from the perspective of, hey, they're not targeting the small business owner. They're not targeting the social media manager. They're not targeting anybody that is in that field necessarily. They're just trying to target the average casual user that's looking for information.
Yeah. And I will straight up admit that one of my best sources has been Google Alerts. I have a Google Alert that I get literally every single morning for each of the major social media platforms. And I will admit that I've been rolling back. I stopped getting an alert on Snapchat. And I think I stopped getting an alert on Pinterest as well. But definitely Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I get alerts for every single day, and a lot of it is nonsense. I do need to curate better. But I look at it quickly, and I see, okay, if there's multiple alerts on the same basic story, that's probably a story.
Yeah, definitely. We look at that. I will say, going back to your issue of getting notifications about Snapchat, for example, Snapchat's a very interesting thing. They have a blog, but it actually doesn't usually pull in everything. So sometimes it updates, sometimes it doesn't. So we always, we put it in there, but then we always, make sure we go and check the blog directly. For some reason, it doesn't always get pulled in. I'm not sure why. Yeah. So I'd say, definitely, there is a lot of curation that is involved in the process. But again, it's also about your audience, making sure you provide them with the most value, making sure you maximize the time that you have with them. Don't just assume just because, for example, they're on here on, watching this stream, for example, don't just assume, I can go over 45 minutes. I can go to 60 minutes. Keep it to 30 minutes. And it actually, like I said at the beginning with Social Snacks, my 5-minute videos, it challenges you to be very succinct with the information you're providing.
All killer, no filler.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of sites, they just kind of ramble on and on and on with no real purpose. I think you're going to win your audience over a lot more if you give them a lot of value in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Now, you and I follow each other, and we are both providers on social media of this news. Are there any other sources that you really like on social media who are doing a similar thing?
I don't actually have anyone else that I actually really follow on that from that perspective. I look like I said, I've been doing this since Blab days.
It's been a while.
So we're I think we're the longest running social media marketing news talk show.
Nice.
And so, it's one of those things where I actually will see some people pop on our show and then conveniently they'll send out a list of topics to their audience, which is pretty interesting because a lot of times it's well, hey, that's very interesting. Your list is very similar to mine. So we'll see that, but like I said, it's also about curating the experience for your audience, getting them the information that they need in the shortest amount of time.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to Christian. Everyone check out Social Chefs and the Social Chatter Show. Also check out my Midweek Minute on Wednesdays.
We're going to have to, I think we had you back on, right?
You did. You had me twice.
Yes, I think we scheduled another one out maybe. I'll have to check the schedule.
I don't think we have, but you can.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Actually, we'll communicate over Messenger, get you back on. But yeah, and we're going live again this Thursday. We do ours on Thursday. You do yours on Wednesday. Thursday.
And Thursday, the time kind of hops around a little bit, right? So people should just check out what's happening Thursday.
Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to have Jamie Cohen on as a guest. Awesome. I don't know if you've had her on, but she's going to be a guest.
I'll have to check her out.
And that's facebook.com/social chefs, youtube.com/social chefs as well. And this is another thing, I guess, do you simulcast the show or how do you?
I don't, actually. I considered it, but it turned out to be too complicated. And I've spent so many years kind of building Facebook. For a little while, I used to download these and re-upload them to YouTube. And I may start doing that again, but I'm not invested in a YouTube strategy for myself. Right. So they're just kind of sitting there. I maybe should continue doing that again just so that it's a body of work, but really, my active homes are more Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Definitely. Well, so I'd say with that, if you want to figure out, well, hey, where should I simulcast to? Test some of your shows out. Make sure you tell your audience, where they can go tune in and just kind of see what what kind of response you get. I mean, like you said, if you've built the audience on Facebook and that's where they're at, if you all of a sudden say, hey, you know what, we're going to do a quick shift here to another platform, maybe it doesn't work. So, again, test things out. Pick one thing, maybe run a couple shows for a month, see what it's like.
Yeah, for Midweek Minute, I have been simulcasting the live stream in the afternoons on Facebook and LinkedIn. It started out as a LinkedIn Live exclusive show because I was trying to say, okay, well, maybe this is a way to develop a new audience by giving them an exclusive. But then I realized, I really am more concerned with more people watching it than I am with developing a new channel. So now I'm simulcasting that on LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live, and I'm going to reassess basically in December and see what I feel like doing in the new year.
Definitely. And that's another thing. I mean, how every platform keeps, moving or improving or adding changes, like LinkedIn Live, out for some people. Again, I mean, you have to test, you have to see what works. And I like to look at it like this. I mean, you're simulcasting. You're not doing anything different than a TV show. So you need to treat yourself like a TV show. Like if you put it on one channel and, for example, let's say it's behind a paywall. Like if people have to pay to, for instance, tune into a show, I'm really cutting off, who my audience is that I can reach, instead of saying, well, hey, you know what? I know who I want to reach. Let me put them on these platforms, and then let's measure and let's see what works, what doesn't work, and then move some things around.
Yeah, it's not always about big numbers. It's about the right numbers, and that is huge.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much.
I was just saying one last thing. Don't get disappointed either. Like you mentioned this earlier, like it's about getting viewers. Replays are typically a very good way to like really get some mileage out of your videos. Huge. It's hard. You mentioned this a minute ago with video, with us moving our show times. Sometimes it's there's no magic like, well, hey, if I publish at like 2:00 in the afternoon, everybody's going to tune in. People are busy. You have to make sure you're meeting them where your audience is at. Don't worry if they don't tune in live all the time. And hopefully this will encourage them to tune in live, or they can give you feedback saying, hey, you know what? I can't make the 2 p.m. show, but hey, if you move it to like, 6:00 at night when maybe somebody's out of work, that's when people do their consumption. But just test that out.
You can broadcast it when you broadcast it and then start a watch party of the replay.
Exactly.
At another time. So, yay! Yes. Well, I know that you had a hard stop, so that's part of why. No worries. So thank you so much. Everyone check out Social Chatter. I'm Christine Gritman. I do this every Friday at 12 noon, and next week I will be on with Ryan Foland, so check that out. Thanks for tuning in.